Hi there, and welcome to Ariadne's Thread, a podcast where I discuss the path of awakening to a spiritual life and all the obstacles that stand in the way of it. Today I'd like to talk about meditation, more specifically, why you hate it, or at least have a hard time sitting down to do it. You're not alone. Even I, someone who has a meditation channel, still struggles with it, so if you are one of those people, don't be hard on yourself. But I want to explain to you, or at least try to explain, why meditation is so difficult for so many in an attempt to try and help you sort through that stubbornness in your mind that can hinder your process. I'll start with my meditation journey. As some of you might know from my previous podcast installments, I used to be extraordinarily depressed. I had been on antidepressants a couple of times, but they were awful experiences. And I got to the point where I needed to find something to help me out of that darkness. And I had been hearing about the benefits of meditation for years. But, like most people, I ignored it, I guess. There's something within all of us, I think, that is adverse to silence, to sitting alone in your mind or your body with nothing to look at, to entertain you, especially in this day and age where we are all so tuned into our phones, our social media platforms, our entertainment platforms. There's so much noise out there, and that noise can make us feel less alone, I guess. It makes us feel connected to something, even if that thing that we're connecting to is not necessarily good for us. We all know that we shouldn't be on our phones so much, we shouldn't be on social media so much, or consuming as much entertainment as we do. But there's something deep within us that is deeply afraid to let go of that. And meditation represents all of that fear. It represents the fear of being alone. And not just on your own, doing activities by yourself, but immersing within yourself, into the silence of you. For many of us, being alone with our thoughts is the most terrifying thing we can think of. Our minds can be pretty terrifying places sometimes. And I think a lot of us have the idea that to meditate is to be locked in a room with essentially, your worst enemy. Your mind can be your worst enemy. Who wants to be stuck with that? So we distract, we consume, we do everything we possibly can to stay away from ourselves. But little do we know that having the courage to sit in that silence with ourselves, with the parts of ourselves that we despise most or we're afraid of most, it is what is going to heal them. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's go back to how I started. So I had a month off because I had a surgery. So there were no excuses. I had a month that I had free and clear where I could meditate for 15 minutes a day and see what happens. So I did. I meditated for 15 minutes a day. That was my goal. And every single time I sat down, set the timer for 15 minutes, I would, around the 10-minute mark, get to a point where it would actually become fun. The first 10 minutes in the beginning was always loud. My mind just did not like what I was doing to it. It did not enjoy sitting there in the dark. It wanted to be doing things. It wanted to get up. It thought of the chores that I still had to do, of the work that I was falling behind on, of the dog that needed to be walked, of the dinner that needed to be made. It kept coming up with things that would derail me from finding that sense of peace within myself. But you persist. You sit through it. You understand that those thoughts are going to arise because you are not used to sitting like that, in that silence with yourself. You're used to doing, right? We're all trained from a very early age to do, to be productive, to accomplish things, to never be idle for too long, because that's not how our society functions. In its present form, our society functions as a powerhouse, a train that must always be on the track, always moving. Stillness is not promoted in our society. And so to try and find that still place within feels, at times, almost impossible. That's how it felt for me in the beginning. It felt like I was beating my head up against a wall. And like so many people at the beginning of their meditation journey, I thought I needed to stop the thoughts. I thought that I was failing if I couldn't quiet my mind. I punished myself for not doing as well as I thought I would, or I thought I could. But in time, and with advice from other people who meditate, I learned that the goal was not to stop my mind from thinking. The goal was to be with my mind as it thought and observe it from a higher perspective. Now, the way you do this is by tuning out of your mind and tuning into your body. becoming aware of your breath. That's why in my sessions I always start with the breath. It always begins with the breath, because the breath is the facilitator of releasing those chemicals within the brain that begins to calm your muscle functions, your thought processes. It brings you to this state of peace. So the breath is what gets you to the state where you are then able to look at yourself from a detached perspective and see your thoughts and see that you are not thinking them. They are being thought by your brain. It's the most fascinating thing to watch your thoughts. It's like watching a puppy running around in circles trying to bite its tail. You look at it almost as though you are this sweet little adorable puppy who's just confused as to what the heck this tail thing is, so it keeps chasing it, it keeps going around. In that state, you don't judge yourself. You see yourself truly as Source sees you. It doesn't happen in a moment of enlightenment. It's not like all of a sudden the clouds are going to part and you're going to realize that you are a spiritual being and everything else is just distraction. No, it happens subtly. For me, I didn't even realize I was observing my thoughts until I had this thought. It wasn't a thought, it was more of an impulse. It was like a voice coming from somewhere within that said, "Who are you if you're not those thoughts?" And then that is what really pulled me away from my physical form into this realm where I had no beginning, I had no end. I was limitless and infinite. And I remember the first time I felt that, I felt a mixture of elation and fear because I didn't know how to define myself anymore. I hadn't yet realized that defining myself was what was keeping me from truly merging with my higher self, with that detached perspective that could see me as I was. I went from being the hamster on the hamster wheel to being the person watching the hamster on the hamster wheel and loving that hamster because it's just a sweet little hamster doing what hamsters do. There's no judgment in that space. There's only understanding and compassion for yourself. So after my first few meditations, I started to feel different. I started to feel lighter, happier. I could definitely feel a mood increase. And then after a few more weeks, I started feeling something more. I started feeling the energy within. I started to feel the presence within my body, the flow, the aliveness. By tuning in to the physical sensations within me, it's as though it elevated me to a new level of understanding about what I was. I could see that my body was a beautiful gift that I was abusing. I was being so unkind to myself in my thoughts. Observing my thoughts was kind of like observing a child bullying another one on a playground, and I just wanted it to stop. I just wanted that child to stop screaming at me. But I couldn't yet change the thoughts. I didn't know how. I didn't know that I could. But with every day that I committed to meditating, 15 minutes a day, which almost always led to more, because once you get into that space, after about 10-15 minutes, you feel just better. You feel better than you do when you're in your waking life, and you just want to extend that feeling, so you stay. But that doesn't mean that coming back to meditation the next day is any easier. It is just as hard for me to sit down in meditation today as it was back then. But the difference with now is that it only takes me a matter of seconds to get to that place, that still, silent, peaceful place. Whereas back then it would take me 10-15 minutes. All I have to do now is close my eyes, focus on my breathing first, and then bring my attention to my heart or that center within my mind, your pineal gland, your third eye, because that's where everything is created. And meditation is a tool to allow you to create in your mind and then your body. And that's what manifests everything in your world. Everything begins in the mind. And if you are not in control of the thoughts that are being thought, then you are creating on default. And unfortunately for most of us, our defaults are thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I can't do that, I'm not worthy of this, who am I to think I could try? Sound familiar? Many of us have such self-defeating thoughts because that's the environment we grew up in. Even if we didn't have people verbally and mentally and emotionally abusing us, the world itself essentially is a bully. It conditions us to be afraid of so many things, to be afraid of failure, to be afraid of pain, to be afraid of tragedy. And so we cocoon ourselves in our minds and think that if we just focus on our thoughts, if we just stay here, if we just keep our eyes tuned to every danger around the corner, that somehow we'll be okay. But that's never the case, is it? Focusing on our thoughts, on our problems, never makes them better. It only compounds them. It only makes them worse. It only brings about anxiety and fear. Now, we all know those people who are just balls of anxiety, of worry. My mom is one of them. Every time I talk to her, she's got a new concern. She's got a new physical or medical condition. And it's really hard to watch because she refuses to meditate. I've tried everything. I've given her books, I've sent her sessions, but it doesn't work because you can't get someone to meditate. Everyone has to come to it of their own accord. Everyone has to find the discipline within to sit down and allow the process to unfold. And the reason we're so afraid of that is because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we've buried deep within our psyches that is going to come up, especially if you have a lot of trauma in your past. It's hard to look at it. It's hard to be with it, to see it as it is. But the only way you're going to heal it is by looking at it. That's what meditation allows you to do. It allows you to sink into that darkness with the light at your side and courageously confront your inner demons. I had this dream once, not long after I started meditating, where I was in this very brightly colored room. It was painted with pinks and blues and purples and yellows. It was like a Candyland kind of room, and I was surrounded by people I remember this princess in a pink dress like Peach from Mario, and there were all these other characters in delightful costumes, and it just felt like this collection of Disney characters, and me just sitting in the middle of it, looking around, enjoying what I was looking at. And then all of a sudden, the walls started to melt and burn, and the characters around me started to get afraid and run and scream and cry, and we all ran in different directions as the building around us was essentially burning with us in it. I was running through corridors, through hallways, just running away, running from this fear. And then I turned this corner and there it is, this black hooded figure hovering there. Looked very much like a Dementor from Harry Potter, just hovering. And I skidded on my heels. And I turned and I ran in the opposite direction. I saw the beast in the middle of my psyche and I ran. And then I burst through this door. And wouldn't you know, I'm back in the colorful room. And all the colorful characters are back, just as they were before. Laughing, partying, having a good time. And so I sit down on the couch next to the princess. Except something's different now. She doesn't look so jovial. I see fear on her face, abject fear. I can feel her heart pounding, and I remember saying, oh no, it's never gonna end. And sure enough, the walls start burning again, and I wake up in a cold sweat. What I learned from that dream is that you cannot outrun your darkness. You can try and distract yourself with bright colors and parties and interesting people, but your darkness will always find you. So the only thing you can do, the only sane thing you can do, is confront it. And so what I did in meditation, I went back to that dream. I immersed myself in how I felt, and I confronted that hooded figure. I walked up to it, and I said, I'm here. Do your worst. And you know what? That dark figure evaporated. Instantly. There was nothing left. Not a shred of darkness was left. Your fears are not real. They are fabrications of your mind. Because your mind is trying to save you from that fear. It's trying to avoid that fear. So it will tell you to do things like run, avoid certain situations, avoid opportunities, anything that might bring the light into your life. Because the light brings up more of those dark entities within you, those dark thoughts. What else does the light do but illuminate? It's going to cast light on those shadows within. But that's your opportunity to confront them. To see them for what they are, illusions. The more you do this in meditation, the more you will heal. Now, it's not easy confronting that darkness, but the tool of meditation, in my opinion, is the only way that you can do it safely without incurring major damage to your psyche. The reason for that is because when you meditate, you have the light active within you. You're connecting to that light again. Throughout your daily life, your chores, your work, your family, your pets, you get distracted from that light. You tune out of that light. And then you get afraid again. You get anxious again. You focus on the things that could go wrong instead of the things that could go right. How insane is that if you think about it? We have two choices. We can focus on the things that will go wrong or the things that will go right. And yet the vast majority of us choose the things that will go wrong because we think that by looking at those things, we'll be more vigilant and ready when they happen. But we won't, because when tragedy strikes, you will be thrown into completely new territory. You will have no map, and that's where the fear comes from, the unknown. So if you're confronting the unknown every day in meditation, then when it happens in your life, it is less frightening. You know that you can survive it. Even if you don't survive it in the physical, what you truly are will survive. Meditation has been proven to increase the well-being of people who are dying, people who are at the end of their lives. When they commit to a meditation routine, they become less afraid of that death because now they're connected with their inner being, their truth, their impermeable, indestructible truth. There is no real death. There is only transformation. And if you allow that transformation to take place while you're still alive, my God, you are given the key to the universe. You are given the key to yourself. You will be able to move the mountains in your mind because you know that you put them there with thoughts and you can remove them with thoughts and emotions. You are in control, always. And thinking anything other than that is pure foolishness. Now, I get a lot of comments from people saying that they hate sitting there in meditation, that it's just too hard, and I get it. So when you're just starting out, I don't really recommend trying to force yourself to sit down. If you can do it, great, but there are a lot of people who can't. But sit-down meditation isn't the only way to meditate. There are a plethora of different ways to meditate. Going for a walk in the forest, watching the trees as the breeze flows gently through them, listening to the birds as they sing, as they serenade you on your walk, noticing the little squirrels as they gather their nuts. That is meditation. That is walking meditation, and it can be just as effective as sitting meditation. The difference between an active meditation like walking, observing, and a more passive meditation like sitting in the silence is that you can go deeper when your body isn't being used for other things. If you get in that flow state, let's say as an athlete or a musician or a painter or a writer, if you're creative at all, you will know that flow state. That flow state is meditation. That is where everything springs from. So if you can get to that state, then you're meditating, you're doing it. If you can just take it one step further to removing the physical act and going within, closing your eyes, closing everything else down, going within, you will find a greater depth to your enlightenment, to your ability to see through the illusion. But if you just cannot sit, then go for a walk. Pay attention to what you're seeing. Connect yourself to what's around you. Be in the moment. Ultimately, that's all you're trying to do. Be in the moment. Be right here, right now, not in your thoughts, not in the past, not in the future. Be right now. If you can do that, then you've unlocked a superpower within you. You've become, or you are becoming, what you were always meant to be. And meditation is the most powerful tool to help you get there. So if you're one of those people who just can't sit, then just become aware. Start there. Become aware of what's going on in you. When you're going for a walk, when you're doing the dishes, feel your heartbeat within. Feel your pulse flowing the blood through you. Feel your mind as the electricity runs through it. Just become more connected with yourself. And in time, it will become easier. I promise. Every time you try, it will get easier. So just try and see what magic awaits. I'll end that here today. I really appreciate you joining me for this, and if you are still sticking around, thank you. It means so much. If there's something you want me to talk about on this podcast, let me know. I'm always looking for ideas, so I really appreciate it. So until next time, I wish you light, love, and harmony. Thank you for joining me.